Periscope, like the
Well,
live.
Guys, we are now live to Twitter. Welcome. This is
awesome.
the Disgust stream of the Michael Pulowski Experience, featuring we have the usual Chris Locs at Real Mr. Behavior and at Jether Blaise. I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. I've been pronouncing it Jather, and it's actually Jether. So
Jather.
I don't know. When I read it, it sounded interesting to me. It sounded I don't know.
Got lunch delivered here too, so.
Oh, there you go. Well,
Sweet.
now we're in good shape. Oh, I didn't even get my water, so. Let's break. I don't even remember exactly what got us on the topic of disgust. Do you guys remember?
That was my fault. Yeah, that was my fault.
Oh
I
no,
made
it's
a tweet about it.
your credit. It's your credit, man. You got us on a topic. I wouldn't say it's anybody's
great.
fault.
Well, there's a lot of sensitivity about homophobia and being a homophobe and stuff like that. And any topic about that kind of stuff is going to be, very sensitive. So my tweet was essentially to the effect that men, when they see gay stuff and they have this type of visceral reaction to it, like, I don't want to see that, get that shit out of my face.
Right.
My premise is that that's actually a revulsion instinct.
Yes.
Because let's be honest, that type of lifestyle, that type of behavior is very high risk and it's associated with a lot of disease. Yes. And they live 20% shorter lives than the rest of us.
Well, and the thing is, even that is relative to our society as a whole, because conceptually being gay doesn't automatically make you or whatever doesn't make you more prone to diseases. It's the current lifestyle trend, and actually it's more historic. It's more the previous generations. I mean, this new generation of gay people, they can be the ones to kind of renounce that stigma.
Well, I would say that it's more of an evolutionary kind of like self-preservation type of thing, because
you're saying
in order
disgust
to
in general or homophobia?
Well,
we were just discussing. Well,
this portion of it, like homophobia or whatever, because it would. I wouldn't even say like homophobia as a whole. I would just say like being adverse to being in those social situations because of the fact that, like, evolutionarily, where in order to perpetuate the species, man has to impregnate woman. So anything that goes against that is going to be it doesn't actually help us continue as a species. And I would say that's where that comes from.
Well, and I would say you actually nailed something a little deeper there too, is it's also its objective purpose, because one thing I always keep in frame for myself is, like, I am good at speaking English. You know what I mean? I can reason with you two because you also have reasoned your way to English to the point where you've mastered, you know what I mean? So there are these same topics are being discussed in Russian all over the in all over the planet, and like, how are they going to be able to conceptualize it the same way? The only point I'm bringing this up is it's like the conversation we're having is kind of unique when you think about it. Like, how many people really break it down, on a daily basis?
You saying in Russia, I actually watched a video about this. It's like in Russia, like, most people are just like, nope, get that shit out of here.
Right. Yeah.
That's
why I mentioned Russia in particular, because they're also having a bit of a cultural revolution.
Right. They are. Yeah.
For some reason, you're completely frozen up right now, Chris.
Yeah, I'm like pushing. I can see myself pushing my glasses up. I look like a nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll probably
it's all
fix
good,
itself.
Man. I mean, if you want to be a nerd, you're welcome to it. I think we're all nerds here, so it's no real insult being made. So
I'd imagine it'll fix itself at some point. I'm not worried, but you can hear my voice still, right?
No, yeah, you're fine. I guess because we've already kind of gone deep. I want to take it back to skin deep. Disgust. I just want to do the Wikipedia definition, and then maybe we can play with that and then build off that. That sound good?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So disgust comes from Middle French and Latin. It comes from dis, which is like against, and gustus, which means taste. So it's against taste in Latin, and it is an emotional response to the rejection or revulsion to something that is potentially contagious, or something considered offensive, distasteful, or unpleasant. Charles Darwin wrote that disgust is a sensation that refers to something revolting. Disgust is experienced primarily in relation to the sense of taste, secondarily to anything which causes similar feeling by sense of smell, touch, or vision. Musically sensitive people may have been disgusted by the cacophony of inharmonious sounds. Research continually has been proven that there's a relationship between disgust and anxiety disorders such as arachnophobia, blood injection injury type phobias, and contamination-related fears such as obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. What do you guys think of that?
Well, I want to comment on the music thing because actually I think that's very apt. As somebody who plays music, I've been a musician for a long time. Cacophonous sounds, like, so I have a friend who a couple of years ago, he was talking about how he was into like noise music. Are you guys familiar with that?
I mean, I can conceptualize what you're referring. I don't know specifically what you mean, but
so like noise music is like, it's basically just like really lots of sounds and like grating. So like you'll have like dogs barking or like chainsaws or like static and things like that. And people put it together to make quote unquote music. I wouldn't even call it music because it doesn't necessarily have melody. The interesting thing about it is, though, if you put beats behind a lot of this stuff,
is it done intentionally, or is it just?
It's done absolutely intentionally.
Okay.
So the interesting thing about it is some of this stuff, if you put beats behind it, it will work, right? Because there actually is rhythm to it, but it's actually a lot of noise, and so it's literally called noise music. And there's like festivals for this stuff. But my buddy, he was doing noise music a couple of years ago. He's like, "Yo, I want to show you some of this stuff," But a lot of people get weirded out. I said, "I'm open-minded. Why not?" So he plays it for me. Literally after a minute, I was like, turn this shit off. I can't. This is like, and that definitely triggered my disgust, mechanism, because it was like, as somebody who is like plays music and really like, I really appreciate, rhythm, melody, all of how sounds blend together to create one song or one, symphony, whatever you want to call it. It definitely offended my sensibilities. Like
as a musician,
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting point, that it's not even necessarily just taste. It's also like,
it's all the senses.
It's completely,
For me, what started this journey for me was when I was younger. My sister, she would put like lotion on these weird patterns on her arm. And there was one day when she was doing that, my mom came in, and then she just had this strange response. She was just like very creeped out by it, and she just like shut down completely and ran out of the room. So that I thought was strange. But later on, actually this happened with the with the release of the iPhone 11, with the pattern of the cameras on the back in that weird shape. It's kind of like a cluster of irregular holes. It's something called trypophobia, where people have trypophobia. If you look at it, and you can look up like you can look up like trypophobic imagery, and it is actually kind of a bit unnerving, but it's treated as a reflex reaction. People have this visceral response to it because, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, people actually, I studied this in psychology at one point. It's bringing up, just so you guys know what's on screen right now, one of the visual aids on Wikipedia it says a lotus seed head, that it elicits feelings of discomfort or repulsion in some people because it kind of looks like a zit getting popped. But it's like a plant. It's like a plant that grows that way, and like the seeds just kind of chill like that. And I remember seeing the same thing, that exposure therapy to that elicited responses from people.
I'm definitely a little bit freaked out by that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, you see it?
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can pull.
It looks weird.
I can pull up more images while we discuss, because I remember there being worse examples.
Let's. There's a lot.
I mean, we can't have a discuss stream without disgusting our audience, so let's make it happen.
And ourselves, man.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, I can always look away.
The whole point of that is that there seems to be some kind of inheritance of a certain type of neural pathway in our minds or in our brains, where we respond to these things in such a way where it's the response that we give is basically a protective mechanism, a survival mechanism, so that we would avoid such a thing. We would avoid things that look
dangerous,
evoke that kind of response. Exactly.
Right.
And like when the iPhone 11 came out, and I was looking through the comments, I was like, "What the heck are people complaining about?" And then this thing trypophobia came up. I was like, "Oh, I know what this is."
Yeah.
Because that it's basically like a cluster of holes.
And you said the iPhone. You're saying this was. Let me pull up the image you're talking about. You said the iPhone. What would it be considered? Like if I had to look it up on Google Images.
If you just because originally this was on Twitter. I saw this on Twitter when it came out, when they first unveiled the design, iPhone 11.
Is it for the camera itself, or
the camera on the back? The three cameras on the back. the way that they're clustered together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, see those images you're going through, those are freaking me the hell out.
Well, I just changed it now. I'm actually pulling up the. Oh, you have trypophobia.
I don't have it, but I'm saying it provokes that response.
Oh, okay, okay.
That, like my mom has an extreme reaction to that, where she has to get out of the room or she can't look at it. It just freaks her out, and she's just like crazy.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just like I don't want to. Well, I don't want to keep looking at it.
A very common fear is that of heights, and that's one that I personally don't have. I used to work on roofs, but I think just breaking down a very simple fear, just because it said that I think in the definition that fear and disgust are probably similar. Can we all three agree on that? That there's at least a common vein that fear and disgust play?
Absolutely.
Now, the argument I would make is disgust is the flight, while fear is probably the fight. You know, if you want to look at them as like brother and sister of each other, disgust is like revulsion, like I'm staying away, like I'm ignoring. If you look at it as a social thing, it might be I'm ignoring you, while fear would be I need to engage you, you know? And then if you look at it as like a stimulus, like a stress response, it'd be the same thing. It's like I need to get rid of something I fear, but something that disgusts me, I'm just going to stay away from.
So I don't know if I would agree with that, because if you think about like the disgust mechanism or disgust reaction is definitely something that triggers your sensitivity to like dirt or whatever. So like in your home, for example, like cleaning, keeping your house clean, etc. If you didn't have a disgust mechanism, you would just kind of like let everything pile up. You know what I mean? I know some people that are kind of like that. So I feel like that's more of like, that's kind of like a fight, sort of like if you want to compare them. Like, okay, so I'm going to clean my bathroom so that it doesn't, like, I'm not just going to avoid it. I'm going to clean it, you know, so that I don't actually experience this disgust. So I would say I wouldn't even put them in the category of fight or flight. I just think it's a little separate.
Okay.
Maybe it's like a difference of degree. So like you have, it's on a spectrum basically, flight on one end and fight on the other. And there can be hybrids where you have a mixed response.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. So like, for example, you look at a dirty bathroom and you're like, it's disgusting. You want to get out of it, but also at the same time, you know, you got to clean it. So there's that. And mad props.
Actually, I think Jether, I think you brought up a very important point too. Is I think that bathrooms are probably a very common. When we want to talk about phobias and like anxieties, a lot of people, they have their phobias and anxieties are probably induced by bathrooms or trips to the bathroom. I know public restrooms are very common. And that's kind of a blurry territory.
Yeah,
do you call it a fear?
I hate public bathrooms.
But do you call it a fear or do you call it a disgust? You know what I mean?
I think it's a disgust. It's like an aversion.
Right.
But, you know, like, and that's the thing about like the phobia like word, when you like put that into, like you were saying, homophobia before or whatever.
Right. That's
but,
it. Yeah.
The actual definition is that it's like a fear or aversion. So it's not both. It's like one or the other. So like you can have an aversion and still be considered that. So in this case, I definitely have an aversion to public bathrooms. I hate public bathrooms.
Right.
Like if I can go home, if I can hold it and go home, I will do that if I can. Because it's gross. It is. I definitely have a high sensitivity to that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have a fear of public bathrooms, but I do plan my day so I don't have to deal with that situation, you know?
But why do you plan your day that way?
Just because it's preferred. It's preferred. It's I mean, I don't have any, you know, like I'll put it this way: if I don't have too many distractions for that particular day in question, I can know that I need to go to the bathroom, be aware of my bathroom cycle, and know where I'm going to be at a certain time, and make sure that I'm home by then. But let's say like I'm doing like 3 different favors for friends and family members that day. Sometimes you just got to take a crap at a McDonald's. If that happens, like I really screwed up. Like I probably should have not been where I'm at that given time. But you know, you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, I am. Like for me, like something that I really hate is going to the bathroom on planes. Like super hard. And like on my way to Japan recently, I actually did not go to the bathroom at all. I was on a 14-hour flight and did not use the bathroom at all. And there was actually a guy sitting next to me did the same thing. And I was actually pretty proud of myself. But on the way back, I had to do it because I didn't plan my shit accordingly, like quite literally.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's funny is I talk literal shit with people sometimes, and that alone is a disgust response. But some of my best friends, like they'll just text me about the most recent shit they took, and it's like it's kind of funny for some people, but like at the end of the day, I'm like,
wait, they text you about taking
oh
shits?
yeah, I just took a mean one, shit like that. Like part of it's funny, but also sometimes it's like, hey, I just like drank for like 2 days straight, and this shit happened. You know what I mean? But the whole point I'm saying is, it's like there's a level of trust built between people when you can share common disgusts, and know that person's not gonna like run away from the conversation too.
Well, I think so. So you're talking about like bonding on like disgust?
Well, yeah. I'm saying that something that can be such a polarizing point. And I don't know why, but for some reason I'm not getting any video from both of you guys right now.
What?
It might just be the settings. No, it's not. It's the format that I.
You getting my video now?
No, Chris, I'm getting nothing from you.
Oh, weird.
Chris,
definitely on.
Jether, yours is fine. I'm just saying. Okay, we're good again. I think it's because Chris keeps freezing.
Chris keeps freezing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The problem.
What did you do? You have like a very low aperture setting, or you have a blur on the background?
Yeah. He's got a portrait mode or something engaged.
I have mine set to blur background.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a little less distracting, but I've got a map in my background, and I don't want that diminished in any way.
Yeah. Well, I got my room in the background. I don't really like this, but
How's your room? How's your room? Is it activating your disgust mechanism? You clean it recently?
Yeah, I cleaned it recently.
Actually, the room that I'm in right now is like my future game room, and like it's just not set up yet, so there's stuff all around me, and it's a little unnerving.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Now, I'm retweeting this out and telling people to come into our Periscope and tell us their worst examples of disgust. What do you think of that, guys? Because then we can kind of
like disgust stories. Give them.
Yeah. Well, while we're live here, let's see if we can get some people to engage and share with us what when they think of disgust, what's their worst example. Because I don't know. Could you guys have any offhand? Anything that when it comes to disgust? Like I knew we were doing the stream. I had a couple examples. Do you have anything comes to mind?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the bathroom thing, man.
Okay.
That's like. Actually, I think I had a tweet about this recently, and it was like, there's nothing worse than cleaning a toilet, but there's nothing better than having a clean toilet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Okay, let me ask you guys this. I am someone who keeps my toilet always clean. Are you guys the same way?
Yeah.
Like my personal, the one I do most of my tweeting on. I'll put it that way.
Well, so the thing about it, all right, now I'm in a spot where it's like now I live with my girl only, right? But before that, I was with like 2 other guys, and like we had one bathroom, dude.
That gets interesting, man.
Imagine that.
I was just there.
Disgusting, Yeah. So like, and especially because it's like you have more of an aversion because it's not just you doing your business,
right?
You know what I mean?
Well,
and so
the
like,
thing is, in between the last time you took a shit, someone else might have done it themselves,
right?
And
exactly.
ruined the pristine nature you had,
right? Yeah. And so like, it's like, and then if you clean it, it's like, am I cleaning your shit or am I cleaning your shit?
And then that's like, funny. I tweeted out a couple of weeks ago that if somebody's shit in the toilet, if another man's shit in the toilet and you flush it, well, that's just another way of being cut. So I don't ever flush.
I love it.
I don't flush the toilet whenever somebody else is in there. I just, even if it's just like all the toilets are like that, I'll go find another bathroom because I'm not gonna do that.
Jether, I agree with you, man. That's a good way to put it.
Talking about like a public restroom.
Yeah,
definitely. If I go into a stall, that's gross. If I go into a stall,
what actually disgusts me more?
I leave.
You know what disgusts me more than someone leaving a shit in a toilet, public bathroom, is when I've seen it happen multiple times and I have no explanation for how this happens. But people take just a fuck ton of paper towels and just wad it in there. Now most of the time that happens at like sports places or dive bars, but like schools and shit. That's where a lot of times I feel like people just, I don't know if it's intentionally clogging, but like to me that's nasty because like I don't know what's underneath those paper towels.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
What if there's a
or
severed hand under there? That's worse than a shit.
Exactly. This is the other thing. I used to work at a lot of construction sites, or I have frequent construction sites for what I do. And man, the porta johns, dude, it's like I have to go in there with. I gotta close my eyes. I don't even want to touch any surface in there. I carry hand sanitizer. My God, some of the shit in there is like an abomination. It is an abomination, and I feel bad.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, there's something even worse. I've been following this whole coronavirus thing.
Oh yeah.
And there's a guy. There's a guy who lives out in China. Who he did for a while. He's from South America, a white guy from South Africa actually, and he moved to China just because living out in South Africa as a white guy was just very dangerous for him. So he packed up his life, he moved over to China, and he's basically just been vlogging his lived experience in China. And he said one of the worst, most disgusting things he's ever seen in his life is a trucker bathroom, a truck.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah,
it's like these open outhouses where it's just freaking disgusting, and they just have zero fucks given about keeping the place clean.
I mean, that's one demographic of America. Truckers
of too, and I was like, yeah, I can send you the video if you want, but my God, it was just absolutely disgusting.
Well, that's like one of my worst fears when it comes to like road trips and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like my girl and I just did like a 13-hour, 14-hour drive and stuff. It's like going to like some of these like, if you go to like certain rest stops, man, it's just like. And I used to go.
Chris, you have no video, by the way.
My bad.
It's whenever you take the mic on the Skype call. Like Jether's fine, but
yeah. No, it's because I turned it off for a second.
Okay, just so you know.
I could like.
Okay, sorry.
But it's like especially as a kid, like because I used to go to a lot of road trips as a kid and stuff, and like some of these bathrooms in the U.S., man, like. Holy crap! These rest stops. You're exactly right, especially because there's a lot of truckers that just like I don't even know. I guess they don't hire people to clean them or something like that. Or...
I can tell you that personally. I'm from Ohio. Ohio, whether you've ever been there or not, Middle Ohio caters directly to truckers. Because if you think of just where Ohio is in the United States, a lot of trucking goes right through us. Whether it's the southern tip or it's along the lake. Or even straight through Columbus, a lot of trucks have to go through there. So when you're stopping at a freeway stop in the middle of Ohio, pretty much the only thing in town is the gas station. That's not an overstatement. And so
for sure.
Like when you put that in perspective, people don't really care about the bathroom. It fulfills a need,
Oh,
there's no reverence for those bathrooms. There's, if you want to talk about a Holy Spirit, it ain't there.
yeah, for sure.
It ain't there. Yeah,
that's unfortunate, man.
It is what it is, though. I remember being a little kid the first time I went into one. I would say that was the worst disgust response. But like, I don't know, being raised here, it's like you can get conditioned against disgust. How about that? I don't know. We want to take that in a different direction because I know there's certain things that used to disgust me as a kid. That don't anymore.
Know. Well, because according to some like scientists or research that I just found, they say that like disgust sensitivity is generally genetically based, and it's like a predisposition. And so like you get it from like if your mom honestly like it's so I don't know how I feel about this in general because I think part of it could be genetically based, but also taught. Like I know my mom had very high sensitivity to disgust, right? And like she would tell me like things like when we go to public bathrooms or whatever, she'd be like, take like a paper towel when you like open the door. You know what I mean? Like, use a paper towel when you open the door, or like things like that. Don't touch anything. Yeah, I do. I still do that.
Well, this happened to me. Shortly after I got together with my ex-wife and we started dating. Mm-hmm. She was a germaphobe, so there was a lot of things that I did way before I started dating her that I just stopped. Not just because to appease her, but I was like, damn, she got a point. So like one of the things that I used to do was I would sit on the train and then I'd go home and I'd sit directly on my bed. And then once she saw me do that, she flipped out the first time. She was like, "Don't even do that."
That makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah,
that's not completely insane because I've heard from some germaphobes and they completely lose me on the little things they keep track of, like being on the train, going directly to bed. But I mean, she's probably right in that domain. That's a whole nother thing, living in the city versus living in the country. I mean,
well, true.
I know a lot of people who are, you know, depending on what metrics you have, they're financially stable. They, you know, are very productive people. But you come into their houses and there's just mud tracked everywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, so that's another reason why, like, we take our shoes off in my house, man.
Yeah.
And that's like that's like a very basic thing. But like, even like with the train thing, it's like I just came from San Francisco, man. You don't want to be on the BART and touch stuff and then touch your face. Or like touch your, you know what I mean? It's disgusting.
I have sandals I wear around my house.
Oh yeah.
I know some men that work. There's with the transportation system here, the subway system. There's guys. I know some men that work there, but they work in some very special niche group called ventilation and drain. And these guys are responsible for cleaning out clogged, what do you call it? Ejector rooms and this like ventilation systems and the stuff that they've seen in these rooms. My God, it is just ridiculous. It's absolutely disgusting. And these are men that have been doing this for years, and they're still like have a response to it. You know
right. So that's why I think that it is genetically based.
Yeah.
I think part of it is genetically based because you can kind of train yourself a little bit, but there's certain things that just like no matter what I do, if I go into a public bathroom and there's shit in the toilet, like we were talking about before, I'm out of there.
Well,
no matter how many times I've seen it.
And I think we've limited our discussion to a narrow scope to this point. If you guys realize, we've only been discussing inanimate objects.
Yeah, for sure.
That a lot of times that there's certain animals, because you talk about those crawl spaces and things like that. What happens when you open that up and you see freaking, you know, just a bunch of cockroaches or a couple of rats or something?
Some people
that really messes
spiders. You know what I mean? Like my girl, like is deathly afraid of spiders. Right. If there's a spider somewhere, she's not going in there.
I got a story about that. I have a friend who is absolutely terrified of spiders, like real arachnophobia type shit. And I've seen him like just at the mere mention of a spider, he'll like flip the hell out.
Yeah.
And so one day we were driving somewhere and it was dark and I saw a spider crawling up the windshield. I was like, oh shit, this guy's gonna fuck out. He's gonna drive us into oncoming traffic and he's gonna fuck us all up. So I had to tell him, just pull over real quick. Don't make any sudden movements. Just pull over. Don't ask no questions. Just pull the fuck over right now. I told him, get out the car. And he got out of the car and I got rid of the spider. Because I know if he saw that thing, he'd have flipped out. He probably would have been in some kind of an accident.
Yeah, for
That's amazing to me that your friend is that self-conscious of his fear that he's able to like compartmentalize that fear is like in a certain direction and resist the urge to like, you know, Pandora's box, open it up, you know, like that he like knows it's there and just like, okay. And then you took care of the situation. He never got involved with the.
He never got involved. I just
he never saw it, never touched it, never had to do anything.
He never saw it. I just told him
fascinates
just
me.
pull over. Yeah, because I already knew what was going to happen if he saw it. Because I've seen him take his shirt off, do all this crazy stuff at the mere mention of a spider. He just gets crazy.
Yeah, man.
I literally just had a conversation with a woman last week actually, and she had told me that she has a revulsion to frogs. And
weird. Okay.
This was actually in a romantic setting as well, and I being the asshole that I always am, I started pushing the envelope, and I was like, so you know how afraid of frogs are you? And I shit you not, she started trembling, started tearing up. I'm like, oh shit, you are
at the mention of frogs.
I made the joke. I'm like, well, looks like we're not going to
frogs.
I don't. And
it's interesting
that's the thing,
because
man.
Frogs they're harbingers of pestilence.
Right.
They're used in like the Old Testament as a symbol of destruction and
that's true.
And just plague.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
that's
even
true.
To go back to your point you made earlier, I think, Chris, that there's a genetic element to it. That like, you know, what if you know, somewhere along the lines, someone in her family, I don't know what the hell happened, but you know, because I asked her, I was like, you know,
is she
did
Jewish?
You ever
or like Egyptian?
I don't think so. You know, that's a good question, but
well, that's funny because in the Old Testament, there's a list of things that's considered unclean. You should not even touch them. Don't even put them.
Right.
And you can't eat them. But also, one of the things is bats. So you know what that leads into, right? Because
coronavirus
is suspected to have been started because of like the virus jumping from bats to humans.
Here's the thing: do you guys have aversions to those animals? Like, are you guys like, if you had a bat in front, like
frogs or bats? No, actually, I'm used to bats because growing up, there was I would go to the reservation in my hometown in New Jersey, there was like a giant like nature reservation, and we'd go there at night sometimes and just smoke weed. And if you just look up, bats would just be flying all over your head, like all over the place. So bats don't freak me out at all. I'm just used to that.
We have a lot of bats in Ohio.
Young, right?
We tell my mom they're night birds.
That's funny.
She's from Columbia. She bought that for years. Because it wasn't until someone told her, like, Claudia, there's no birds at night. And then she's like, oh, they're bats?
Except for owls.
They're like, no. We're talking, like, if you ever see a bat, they look like little sparrows. They flap their wings real fast. Like, owls are gliders, you know. They
Owls actually freak me out. I don't like owls.
Really? I love owls, man. Owls are the shit.
Well, owls are like...
Jay, he said in the chat, there's several lizard brain fears like spiders, snakes, heights, close spaces.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's that lizard brain. Actually, Rollo Tomasi talks about this a lot. The different types of brain, the instinct, reason, emotion. Those three divisions. So parasites is one of the things that freak me out. Not so much
parasites. I have a major fear of. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good on most things, but parasites, no.
Yeah, no. Me, when I was younger, I used to be very afraid of slugs. Like they would just show up at random, like in the bathroom. Like I guess they crawl out of the wall, and I would see them. Like, where the fuck is this thing coming from? And it would freak me out, and I would refuse to to look at it or touch it. But eventually, I had this friend who was kind of like, he was like, what do you call it? He lived life on the edge type.
Oh, thrill seeker, line pusher,
exactly.
Line stepper, whatever you want to call him.
Exactly, he pushed the envelope a lot. So he would
one of those.
Adrenaline jump handle him, and then eventually, like you talked about exposure therapy. After a while of seeing them, and then eventually I actually started touching them and picking them up. I was like, all right, so this is not really so bad. So that's an example of for me when exposure therapy actually reduced revulsion to something.
That was the point I was trying to make earlier. And I personally, I agree that I think exposure therapy works. There's a lot of people that I've seen online, at least, or even they say that exposure therapy is one, unethical, but two, not effective. And I don't buy into that at all.
Well, it's unethical because you're kind of like putting somebody in distress, or what?
There's a whole, I think there's a fancy, not legal, like a Latin name for it, but there's like when you it's something, I think it stems from the Hippocratic Oath, but you're like, there's a nuance to it that you're not supposed to put people in discomfort. And while some doctors some doctors like think that's a gray area, it's like temporary discomfort for long-term discomfort. That's like I don't remember the legalese to it.
Temporary discomfort for long-term comfort. Yeah.
Right.
When I was younger, I played hockey. I played hockey in high school, and there was one day when I actually got hurt on the ice. Me and some other guy was going for a puck, and then we tumbled and we fell. But this guy behind me, he had like this composite blade, and it had like a sharpened edge, and it like cut me up on the back pretty bad. Man. And so I still played through the game, but after the game, I went to the hospital and I had to get stitches. And the doctor told me, look, there's no easy way to tell you this, but in order for me to put these stitches in, I got to give you a painkiller. And the only way I can give you a painkiller is if I inject it directly with a needle into this open gas. And it hurt like hell. It hurt like hell. Sure. But afterwards,
it went away?
He told me, look, the worst is now over. And afterwards, I didn't really feel any pain. But to follow up with this, you guys saying that doctors don't want to put duress or stress, and that's something that I've been dealing with this urticaria that I've been having, which is basically like a heat hive. And doctors will tell you, take antihistamines. Antihistamines will help. Well, all the research I've done on Reddit and YouTube, people that have this condition, they say the only thing that will help long term is actually forcing yourself to get hot, endure the pain, and force the hives out. After doing that for a sufficient amount of time, your body will relearn the correct response, and you won't basically have this issue anymore. Or if you do, it'll be very mild. And so, since I've been doing that, willingly getting my body very hot, it's painful. But after the hive outbreak, it's like, wow, I feel great.
Have you ever?
The same trigger just doesn't evoke the same response anymore. So I can get hot again, and I won't break out.
Have you ever considered doing Pavlovian? Because I'm jumping right in because you've explained this to me before over Twitter. Have you considered doing any Pavlovian like reinforcement to your own behavior of that? Like when I say Pavlovian, like making it almost ritualistic behavior. That when you do it, you try to so your body will release endorphins knowing that it's going to happen. So like every action you do leading up to it, like if you do it at a certain time of the day, like personally, I had an issue sleeping recently that I resolved. I bought some incense, and at midnight, I would always turn on the incense, and I've been sleeping like a baby since then. That just especially nasal, like we've been talking about the senses, that disgust comes from that, but our nasal sense, how you want to refer to it, is definitely our strongest. It has the most effect on our memory. So
exactly.
If you wanted to like have like a scent, like I chose incense, but having a scent that you attribute to those moments of heat and pain exposure therapy, that I don't know if that might, it would probably make the experience more vivid, but also like the lesson learned or whatever you're trying to condition for yourself might be a little stronger. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say that for the most part, what I've seen is that people, they want to avoid any kind of pain, and they think that, and so what they do is they adopt a very reduced lifestyle in order to accommodate this affliction. Yeah. And what I've seen is a lot of people that endure the pain for months on end, they do it with the knowledge that at the end they can return back to life as normal. And so for me, that's really the main driving instinct, because it's limited my ability to work out before, because they're like, what's happening here? I don't know why do I feel so much pain whenever I try to, or whenever my body temperature rises. And so now, I mean, I think I've tracked down the root cause of it, but still, I noticed that whenever I would let myself get hot in a situation, or if I was in a situation where I can't even avoid it, like on the train, and it's hot on the train, then I would flare out. I was like, holy shit, that was painful as hell, but I feel great now, and I can endure the heat now. So for me, in my mind, I look at the end result of me getting my life back as a motivation to keep doing it. So that's sort of like the Pavlovskian response.
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point. Just to tie it a little bit back into the topic, is do you think there's a direct correlation to pain and disgust? Because we mentioned fear and disgust, but do you think there's a hard line between pain and disgust?
I would say probably. I mean, well, when you were talking about going with the needle, for example, like that's something that I have an aversion to, is needles. Even
I'm
looking
awful
at
with needles.
Someone,
I can't give blood.
You know what I mean?
Oof.
Yeah, like even
It's
looking
bad.
at somebody doing it and stuff like that, you know? So, and I think that I associate that with high amounts with pain, first of all, because it's pricking your skin. And that I believe that has something to do with it. But also it's like, I mean, a lot of needle use, from, where I come from is like was associated with drugs that I'm not really fond of. So there's part of that too. And there's pain involved in, in that kind of, those kinds of drugs use too. So I think like it's more of an ethereal type pain. It's like not really like necessarily
like phantom pain.
Well, like emotional.
Right. No, I'm not poking fun.
You know what I mean?
I understand exactly what you mean. Yeah. That. Yeah. Like, the pain's there, but is the stimulus. What there's a word for it. Made up essentially, or is it?
Yeah, it's not
environmentally provoked.
Exactly. Is it like sort of like a psychosomatic kind of thing?
Psychosomatic, that's the word. I always forget. That's the one word I always like go to bring up, but it's just never there for recollection.
Well, that's what I'm here for, man.
That's it. So I mean, we've made a few good points. I mean, do we want to take a second and just like reflect on what we've done? And I think we had a couple listeners there for a second. I'm starting to finally pay attention to Periscope, but like, what's the ground we covered? We kind of agreed that there's like a fight or flight nature to discuss. That was like one of the first things we said.
It's like a middle ground kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We started talking about the idea that we can become conditioned to it. That and that there's a genetic element to it too.
Exposure therapy sort of works in certain aspects, right. At least with like, Jether with the slugs.
Right, the slugs. Yeah. Well, and the exposure therapy with slugs, and even pain, that there's the same way you can overcome pain, you can overcome disgust. That there's, I think we kind of agree. I'm saying it out loud so we can all agree that pain, fear, disgust, they're all kind of in a similar camp. That there's something that we avoid, but if you go right at them, you can normally master that limiting factor for you. Is that a good way to put it, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. There's like almost overwhelmingly, women are terrified of insects and rodents and stuff like that. But there are there are female zoologists, there are female entomologists that handle
Mhm.
insects all the time. So even if it's something that's hardwired, it seems like there is a way to kind of like patch it so that
Well,
it's not.
I got a perfect
You don't think
example.
that has something to do with that the genetic predisposition though? Like, I think a lot of, I mean, especially with certain fields like that, certain disciplines like that, a lot of people get that stuff passed down too. Like,
Right.
you know,
yeah.
their father or their mother was like a veterinarian or an entomologist or something like that. Even with like, so it's like you think about like actors or artists or whatever. There's a lot of like things that like kind of just pass down. So I
Well,
would
Right,
say,
right,
like,
right.
I don't know how
maybe it's not
what
even
percentage
genetic.
of those people are like that,
Maybe it's
but-
learned. Maybe like
Yeah,
being,
yeah.
maybe being parented by those people that like whenever you see a
Right.
snake and they're afraid of snakes and they,
Right,
they
exactly,
like when you
right.
see the parent give the disgust response, the kid mimics and now they do it for the
Right,
they don't
right.
even know why anymore.
Right, exactly,
You know?
exactly.
True.
They just know that
Well-
their mom's scared of this thing, so that they should be scared of it too.
Perfect example, and this is actually where I think you from marketing perspective you can learn something. Is if you guys seen the movie Dusk Till Dawn?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
The Salma Hayek
Is that the
scene?
one with
Yeah,
with,
she's
Quentin
super hot.
Tarantino?
Well, but she's super hot. But what makes the scene hotter? The fact that she's got a giant boa on her, an albino boa around her neck.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, as a guy, you're forced to like she's sexy, but if you have a fear of snakes, now it's like a juxtaposition for you. You know.
Well, I mean, she's
almost
also
questions
a
your
vampire,
manlyhood.
So if you have a fear of
right.
fucking,
Well, if you're afraid of vampires too, yeah. She
because she changes,
spoilers.
and then she's like, oh,
spoilers.
It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's like there's that movie VHS. You ever seen this?
Not off.
Where like
No.
the beginning
I
is
ain't
it's
seen it.
kind of a similar thing. In the very beginning, the first it's like a VHS is like it's a compilation of a bunch of different like horror stories.
Okay.
And at the very beginning, it's a kind of a similar thing. These guys are in like Eastern Europe somewhere, and this cute girl comes up to this one guy and she's like, I like you. And he's like, okay, cool. He takes her back to like, you know, where they're staying, and then all of a sudden she's like a vampire and she like kills everybody. Like she just turns into this giant vampire and just like destroys everything. So it's like kind of, I mean, it's kind of a similar setup.
You know what that
like,
kind of
to
reminds
what
me of?
happened.
Have you guys seen Love, Death, and Robots?
No, but I've been
Oh.
told I should.
Yeah, man. Jether, have you
What is
seen
that
it?
about? What's
Love,
that
Death,
about?
and Robots.
No.
It's an anthology. It's an anthology of different. I think they're all no. Most of them are animated, but they're all by different animators. Some of them are live action. Some of them are a combination of that like fake live action, fake, CG. But a lot of them, it's got that like Black Mirror shtick to it, where it kind of pushes the boundaries of what you find. And that's the reason I wanted to bring it up. Is like when you look at like Disgust. Hold on. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm gonna mute myself for a second. Sorry,
Okay.
my roommate just
No,
arrived. Give me a second.
All right. Yeah, no, I haven't seen anything about it, but
No, I mean it kind of reminds me of because you said robots. It's like this is one of the videos that I have coming out this week.
Yeah.
Talks about like sex robots, the new sex robots that are coming out.
Yep, that's one of the
Yeah.
angles they talk
like-
about in the show.
That's definitely something that disgusts me. Like
Mm.
I'm not a fan of the idea of sex robots for many reasons, but like most of it is just because I think that like it just kind of gives people an excuse to like not develop themselves into a desirable person.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so that
Oh
is
yeah, I
kind
agree
of
with that entirely. Yeah.
something where I'm like, this is
Well-
like this is a little bit too much. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that's disgust or just a general aversion or
Yeah,
I
I even have a
like there's
go ahead.
social aspects of disgust.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I was
Right.
gonna say one quick thing is just the fact you said they're avoiding a chance at mastery of self or something along. There's almost a disgust principle in there. Like when you have a grown man who's still incapable of like ordering his own food when he goes to like or
Right.
some carry out.
Right.
That's
Oh
there's
yeah,
a,
for sure.
there's a disgust reflex there as well. Like,
Right.
any older people, women their age, like whatever, they like see that a grown man, there's an expectation that they should be fine with that. And like
Right.
when you have like a sex robot, it like you said, that there's a projection angle. There's like the personal side that you're not you're not creating conflict where you should be, but also
Right.
it's causing you to have ripple effects when you're all the little things you do in life.
Right.
And
Well,
people
it's
notice
like,
that.
I mean, talking about grown men being weird and stuff, it's like even like a grown man who has like this is just me who has like a who's like constantly girl probleming. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like I have this girl and I kind of like her, but like, and I'm like, dude,
I'm guilty of that.
what,
though.
like, yeah, but
I'm totally
no,
guilty of that shit.
No, not like that though. Not like the way that I'm talking about.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I think the way that you described it to me is it's like, oh, like I want to go out with this chick and she ditched me or some shit, and like I don't know what to do, or like.
Oh,
or like
keeping it simple and grounded. You mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh yeah,
I
had a date and it
I never
didn't go
fly
through,
off the
like,
rails.
That sucks.
Yeah.
You know
oh
what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Like,
No, you're not gonna get that shit.
Stuff.
I hate that.
That's like normal.
Well,
you
to
know
me,
what I mean?
to me, that's when you're talking emotions. That's like how you felt.
Right.
I'll tell you what happened.
Right.
I'll tell you what.
Exactly. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's like, tell me what happened. I really don't care about how much it.
Yeah, you don't need to throw in your fanfic of what might happen, what could have happened,
Right.
what.
Well, my thing is this too is I kind of go with what Joe Rogan said. I completely agree with what he said here, which is like, if a dude is telling me about something that happened with a girl, it better be funny, dude. Like it better be something hilarious.
I don't think I've ever heard him say that, but I like that.
He did say that. I think that might have been the Hotep Jesus episode. I'm not sure. But he did say something like that, where it was like, if a guy's telling me about his girl issues, it better be some shit like, look what this chick said to me. Well, like, this is hilarious.
That reminds me. I grew up as a wrestler, and as you can imagine, the social side of that is we're very hard on each other, like literally just berating each other all day long. Like when you're in a wrestling tournament, you spend 8 hours with a bunch of guys who are on different time schedules of when they're competing, and so you get bored, and so eventually you just start making fun of each other.
Yeah,
one of the kind of memes before the meme era we had was, and then I found $20, because obviously when you spend $8, when you spend 8 hours with together, you end up telling stories to people over and over again, and they're like, okay, blah 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 blah, and then she did this, and then I did this, and then we did this, and then you just stop talking, and be like, and then you found $20, because like, where the fuck is this story interesting for me? Like, throw me a bone here, you know, and that's really where the issue comes into play, is people not understanding that the audience is trying to hear something, and you're just like, you just gave me a bunch of observation, you know?
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know what I was just thinking. One of these aspects of disgust is disgust that actually can be learned. So one of the things that you see, you ever hear the expression, everybody likes a hot dog until they figure out how the hot dog is made?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or for me personally, what was it? The thought just escaped me. I hate when that happens. But I remember. Okay, I used to be a vegan way back when.
Oh no!
I was just ran. Yeah, I know. It was just absolutely terrible period of my life.
Hey, still, if it was once, fool me once. If you went back to it, I would hold it against you.
Yeah, no. I've never been banging. I will never go back to that. But still, there was this. I was watching these documentaries about food and whatnot, and how eating a plant-based diet is the best for your health. And then after watching a bunch of these documentaries, the food that I used to look at before and think of it as mouthwatering, like a big cheeseburger, now I'm looking at it like, oh my God, get that thing away from me. You know what I'm saying? It's learned disgust.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's actually part of the reason why I hate like the media too, is because like they're kind of they hype certain things up and like trying to treat, it's like a learned fear almost too, and like that's kind of between the fear and disgust. It's like, oh, you need to be scared of this, and this is like we're talking about the coronavirus a little bit too. Like honestly, like I feel like people need to calm the fuck down, because people die from the flu
Trump
way
came
more.
out and said yesterday that it's a hoax. Did you guys hear that?
No, he said that the media hysteria is a hoax.
Right, but that, to me, chicken and
which
egg,
is not the same thing as saying that it's the hoax. It's not the same thing. There's a subtle difference.
You're right.
But a lot of people are going around saying that he said that it was a hoax, and now they're like, Trump is crazy because he says the coronavirus is a hoax. It's like, no, that's not what he said. Like, calm the fuck down. Like,
there's some truth in what he said, though, that it is a hoax, because what is a pandemic but a hysteric moment anyway? I mean, if the hysteria is fake,
swine flu, man, it's like that never affected me.
No, and neither will the coronavirus. I remember that's the point I'm just trying to make, is that if it never affects me, is it a hoax? Yes, that's the point I'm making.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's a very reductionist way of looking at things, but like, I got to get on with my day, son. Like,
yeah.
you know,
I definitely hear you. Definitely.
But I gotta say, things like the coronavirus, like just keep it in disgust terms, it really it's an opportunity to show people to show their true colors. It's like the people are coming out like, "Hey, did you buy your mask? Have you taken your flu shot?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, so you're like this all the time? This is where the stimulus is extracting the reaction from you."
Right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, man. I think that they do carry a disgust reflex. Like they're almost waiting. It's almost like a Venus flytrap. They're just waiting for the fly to land on them, and that's when they come and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we got an issue here. Well, I don't know how I'm going to address it." And that was what we were kind of getting into before. That you got different ways you can respond to that disgust reflex that's within you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta say, for me, I've been racking my brain this whole time we've been having this discussion. Like, what is your worst? Because for me, I think my worst is actually needles. Not because it's my thing I fear the most. It's a thing I know that I'm gonna have to deal with later in life. Like, I'm only 27. I'm gonna have to get blood drawn. I'm gonna have to overcome that, and I still just haven't done it. So
yeah, I mean, needles are definitely high up there. At this point, I can get blood drawn and stuff like that. But like, even if I like look at someone, like if I see a video of somebody like putting a needle in their butt, like I think it's like infusing yourself versus drawing blood. I think I have a different response to that too. So like, if I see like, and I've seen people in San Francisco like shooting up heroin like on the street and stuff. So if I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh fuck. But at this point, I can like get blood drawn. I used to not be able to do that without freaking out either, or like, But needles, I mean, injecting yourself with a needle versus drawing is different to me.
I agree. There's like an intent to what's happening. Is
right.
It, well, and there's medical, and then there's just like, I don't know, BDSM weird stuff.
Jay says, Jeremiah says, giant centipedes.
Giant centipedes.
Oh God.
I can't even see the chat. What the hell?
Centipedes are pretty gross. I'm not gonna lie.
Centipedes are kind of weird. Wait, centipedes or millipedes? Yeah, millipedes are the ones that are herbivores. Those are the herbivore ones. The centipedes.
Wait, centipedes are not.
Centipedes are carnivorous.
Centipedes
are carnivorous. Millipedes are not.
Yeah, they're very nervous animals too. They run around all over the place.
Yeah, and that only makes them creepier for people because they're in constant motion.
Yeah, exactly. Human centipedes, pretty gross.
Well, while we're on the topic, while we're peaking on disgusts here, how about Two Girls, One Cup? That was a cultural phenomenon, man. We can't have a. I know Jether said he never saw it, but Jether,
that's disgusting.
I think you're now the expert here because we've both been tainted by said imagery.
I saw that. I saw what was the other one that was gross floating around that time? Kids in a Sandbox.
I never saw that one.
Oh God, that was horrible, bro.
Well.
That's one that really bugs me. Is like anything that's related to like penile like mutilation or like even if somebody talks about somebody like
BME Pain Olympics
getting kicked in the nuts or something, that bothers me.
BME Pain Olympics. You remember that one?
No, I don't know that one.
Oh, Jether? No.
No, I never watched any of that stuff.
Lemon Party is another one that was.
I was gonna say, I think Chris and I are just exposing our inner masochists here.
Well, this was
Jether has more self-control too.
We were teenagers when that was happening.
Oh, are you a couple years older than we are, or Jether?
I'm 31.
31.
I think so.
We're the same. You're younger.
I'm 27. I'm the baby of the bunch here.
Oh, okay.
But I remember there just being a cultural moment. Like I don't know what it was, but I feel like everyone.
In college.
Oh, you were in college, so you were probably busy. That's probably.
It was freshman year. I remember the exact same day somebody told me to come and watch that shit. Now, mind you, I had no idea. This is to tell you how much
it was forced upon me. It was forced upon me.
Type of stuff. Yeah. So some random guy. I still remember the guy's name. Some guy named Reyes. We were all on the same floor. He came to me. He's like, "Hey, yo, you want to see something disgusting?" And I was like, I looked at him like, "Does it involve shit?" And he looked at me and said, "Yeah." And I said, "Fuck no."
You're probably a smart guy then.
So it turned out that it was that Two Girls, One Cup thing. Was this like around 2006 or 2007?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, that would have been freshman year of high school for me.
I was like right out of high school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, yo, I dodged the bullet because Everyone was like, yo, did you see Two Girls, One Cup to it? No. And I refuse to see it. I have not seen it to this day.
And I feel like a large
stuff was designed to like desensitize people to
I
that
think
kind
so
of shit,
too.
man.
That's one of the things I want to get into because I think most of
Which is
all
disgusting.
those were fake too.
Yeah.
Because like I was one of those like autistic kids growing up that like I deconstructed it and watched it enough times that I was like, okay, it's not bad to me anymore.
Oh.
Because like I like convinced myself, I'm like, that's chocolate pudding and there's nothing else to explain this away because there's no way someone actually did all that to real human shit.
I mean, that dude, people do all types of weird shit. Did you see
that's
that
what
video
creeps me
floating
out,
around
man.
with the girl licking the dog's butthole?
No,
Literally floating around.
no,
This was
I don't
floating
even
around
want to
Twitter,
know.
like,
I don't
last
even
week.
want to pretend like that's real.
Chick was licking a dog's butthole. Straight
Okay.
up.
Speaking of disgust, how often do you think women are participate in bestiality with their dogs? Because apparently that's a thing.
White girls fuck dogs.
So how often do you, let's get a percent of the population of single dog owning women. Jether?
I mean,
You got a percent you can throw at me? Is it below 5?
Maybe like 5 or 6%, but like that's one of those things where I think it's people will do it, but they'll never say that they did it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do we
Honest
get a measure of it? It's one of those ghost statistics that we'll never be able to collect.
Yeah,
well, it's like if you put peanut butter on your balls and your dog licks it off, it's not cheating because it's your dog.
I was gonna say that's something I can say I've never done, but it's like I could also say I've never done it and done it. You know?
Never.
Yeah, no,
I mean, I don't know. Like there was that video
I would
floating
never
around where
subject
that
a
one
dog to
girl
that.
was
That's
just
fucking
talking
nasty.
about how she talks about how she was fucking her dog, and she's like, "I'm the only one. It's not that I'm the only one who does this. I'm the only one who's gonna say that she's doing this." Okay?
Was it you that retweeted that?
And I'm like, what the fuck?
Because I remember I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Was okay. So I wasn't sure if it was one of you guys, but yeah, that weirded me out.
Fucking wild, man.
Well, and what blows me away is what if that chick is one of the few chicks who actually hasn't done it, and she was only doing it for the fame, the clout, the internet.
I don't know. I used to date this one girl who like was really about her dog, and I kind of had a suspicion that maybe she like, I don't know, let him lick her or something like that, you know, occasionally, because she was like,
see that.
I don't know.
I could see that.
I know some women that have these really strong attachments to their dogs. I wouldn't say passive. This
You're
one
right,
girl
exactly.
I knew, she was dating this one guy for like 2 or 3 years or something like that, and then she got a dog like maybe like 2 years into the relationship. This girl didn't even have the dog for a year, and she was saying some shit like, "Oh, if her boyfriend caused the dog to run away or caused the dog to get lost, some shit like that, or die even, then she would end the relationship." Like,
Yeah,
look,
right.
I'm talking about a dog that you only had for not even less than a year, and you're gonna throw away a relationship with a guy that you've known for like 3 or 4 years now,
Right,
on the basis
right.
of some silly dog. Just get another fucking dog.
I lost a potential roommate and friend over a freaking dog.
What do you
But when
mean?
I was in Chicago, there's a guy. I mean, we literally looked at 4 different apartments together, and we were like getting ready to settle in on an apartment. And then he had this little Shih Tzu, cute little dog, but he was I think he was a financial analyst or something. So he spent a lot of time away. So the dog spent a lot of time in a cage. So when the dog had free time with us, you know, I'd go over, have a beer with him. We'd watch. He was a Chiefs fan. We'd watch a lot of football together. So when I came over, his dog would come up and kind of give me a hump, and I'd just I'd push the dog away.
Yeah, get off. Yeah.
And I don't know, for some reason, one of the times it was this magic bullet. He saw me like push the dog away. I don't know if he was just like, you know, pouring himself a drink and just like looked up, and that's what I did. But he just stopped talking to me. He's like, you know, I don't like the way you treat my dog. I'm like, the fuck? Dude, you're the one who's like letting your dog get away with all this bullshit.
Right, exactly.
You
well,
know?
that's the thing. It's like people kind of just let their dogs do whatever the hell they want. And like,
I'm an absolutist, dude. I'm a freaking Adolf Hitler when it comes to dogs. And dogs love it. Dogs love that shit. They're like, yeah, tell me more about what I can't do. They're like, yeah.
Somebody's
They
going to
want
take
that alpha.
that clip and just, I'm an Adolf Hitler. That's
I
what's
don't
going to
give
be
a
the
fuck.
clip that they...
Good. I'll grow the mustache myself.
But like, no, I mean, like, I think, yeah, the thing about, you go back to what Jether was saying, like, you know, girls and their dogs and like, kind of
yeah. Sorry, I went off.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I actually, that girl that I was talking about, like, she had this little dachshund, and like, swear to God, like, she was like, she would come over to my house, and, you know, we'd hang out, whatever, eat, you know, fool around, whatever. And she like couldn't sleep over the house unless she brought this little dachshund with her. She was like, no, I can't leave the dog alone. I can't leave the dog alone. And I'm like, yo, like, it's all right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can like just leave out some food, whatever. But eventually, like, you know, I kind of go, I shouldn't have done this, but I capitulated and the dog came over. Dog was cute, whatever. But it as soon as that happened, it became more and more intense. Like,
Right.
we went out to we were trying to go grocery shopping one time, and like she was like, I remember she goes, I was meeting her at the grocery store, and she texted me and she's like, I have the dog, but I'm getting looks. I'm gonna like stand outside, and I'm like, yeah, you can't bring dogs into grocery stores. Like, that's just obvious. And I see her outside, and I'm like, yeah, why don't we just like tie him up real quick and grab the stuff? And she goes, no, somebody's gonna steal him. And I'm like, what? Like, somebody told me that people do steal dogs and stuff, but like, I don't think that like, I think that like the amount of time we're gonna spend in there, maybe like 10 minutes or something like that. Like, we can like, I don't know, it was just this really crazy separation anxiety.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you can't sleep over unless the dog's there. You can't leave the dog outside for like 10 minutes.
I think the terminology for that is codependency, isn't it?
Codependency, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's extremely codependent. Extreme codependent.
Well, I know
like
some people have that with inanimate objects. It's even worse, you know, because that's at least like a living, breathing thing that, you know, I can understand why you'd want to be codependent. But when you have like a certain comb that, like, if you don't comb your hair with like a certain comb, I'm just trying to think of something ambiguous, but like there's certain people where, you know, they're normal people, but like to me, that kind of obsessive behavior that stems from some sort of disgust reflex, I would assume. Any thoughts there?
But like the separation anxiety, I think it's a fear. I think it's just fear.
Well, I'm saying more, you know? More when it comes to not. I'm saying disgust, like as a response to having anything but what you're accustomed to.
So it's almost kind of like a xenophobia.
Yeah. Along that same line, yeah. Where I'm saying,
well, and it gets worse as people get older too, because if people allow that to happen, like, you're just gonna settle into it. And I think that's what happened with this chick, this dog.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
She had the dog for like 10 years or something like that, and it's like at this point, like it was like it's a baby, and I was like, man, you probably would have been better served just having a baby.
Yeah, it's arrested development.
Exactly.
You didn't let the dog fulfill its greater potential.
Right. For women, like dogs are like just like perennial babies. They never grow up.
Yeah.
They're just always a dog. They always do dog shit. Always a dependent obligation.
They never grow up. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like,
so they
like 10 years into having a baby, you would be able to have like a return and like have the kid like starting to take care of itself and stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But with a dog, you always got to clean up after this shit. You know, I always say this to my partner at work. The reason why we haven't been visited by aliens is because they see the most intelligent race of beings on this planet walking around after dog cleaning up its shit.
Right.
That's the reason why. They're like, there's no intelligent life over here. Let's keep it the fuck moving.
Well, what if the dogs are the more intelligent ones of us? Maybe they think they're the higher intelligence.
They would think that the dogs are in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got this. They got these advanced race of organisms on this planet running around cleaning up its shit.
Right.
I mean, Jether, personally, I've got like 10 different conversations I could take off that theory. That's a really good point you bring up, but it goes down to, it's like, how do you measure the most intelligent life? Because there's some people, biologists have estimated that the elephant brain might be capable of way more processing power than we are. The problem is the majority of that is just managing such a large body, and two, just not having the environmental stimuluses like opposable thumbs, things like that, to develop more. But when you just look at the total gray matter, elephants and whales, like, you just want to look at the hardware of like what their thoughts and intelligence are capable of, way more than us. We're just in a frame that's capable of doing more with our environment.
Yeah, there's I think if you look at cars as an analogy, there's some cars that have huge, powerful engines in them.
Right.
But they're big as fuck, and they don't go that fast.
Nope.
It's just because it's got to pull a heavy load.
Right.
And then there's other cars, like they're called like sleeper cars, where they try to get every little bit of weight reduction possible for a given power of an engine in order to get the thing to go fast.
Right.
So there's that. And then also, since nowadays animals and living things are more so being compared to computer systems,
right,
I would say there are certain senses in which you can have computer system that has, like, let's say, a very powerful processor, so what we would call a lot of gray matter.
Right.
But it's not optimized very well for the loads that it has to drive. Does not really, like make you think that it is a very powerful processor.
Maybe it's kind of like a square peg with a round hole kind of deal.
Yeah. So like when you're talking about
it's not being properly applied.
Yeah, the elephant brain, or let me analogize it to consoles, for example. The Xbox 360 versus the PlayStation 3. Now, the PlayStation 3 easily had the most powerful processor, but it was a very complicated architecture. A lot of developers didn't want to develop for it. So they went with the more simpler Xbox 360 architecture. I forgot which one it was called, but the PS3 had like this complex cell architecture that took a lot of time for them to learn how to use it.
Right, yeah.
Well, I heard that the 360s were very simple.
That was the same problem that the Dreamcast had.
Right.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah, so then when it comes to like living systems, nowadays there's this trend of analyzing living systems in this way. It's called systems biology. So
systems biology. Yes, that's Shiva Ayyadurai stuff.
Yeah, and there's actually this book that I had a couple of years ago. I don't know what happened to it. I actually wanted to read it just in prep for this discussion. It's a book called Wetware. So basically,
I've heard about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know how we talk about hardware? It's actually the physical components, and then you have the software, kind of like more abstract information components of the system. Then you have wetware, which is basically the same type of motif, but applied to what they call wet structures like brains and things like that. So
like neural networks, things like that.
Yeah. So the premise is that you can explain the behavior of individual cells and then cell systems and organs, all that in terms of information theoretic or computer theoretic term. And what they've been trying to do now is to basically model living systems in this type of way. And it's the premise of the book is that he gives like this one example of the behavior of, I think it was praying mantis. Like you think that like he was analyzing some aspect of his behavior. It was a long time ago I had the book, so I'm just recalling based off of memory right now.
Right.
But like you would think that its behavior is erratic, when in reality the insect is just following a hardwired genetically predetermined course of action. And that's how I tend to understand. I've been trying to look at it in that framework nowadays, understanding living things, especially since I've read this book called The Lucifer Principle.
Yeah.
Which was
you said you said the Lucifer Principle?
Yeah, the Lucifer Principle. So there's this book that it was recommended by AJA Cortez on Twitter. I'm not sure if any of you guys follow, but in like the manosphere, in the manosphere space, he's pretty popular. And he tweeted out in one of his emails, he mentioned this book that you should read. And basically, it looks at how history is developed, understanding the biological bedrock of humans and animals and all that stuff. He basically reduces that even further to like neural networks and things like that in order to explain how the pattern of history and like all the evils associated with it really is just living things dancing to their genes, essentially.
Right. Well, and there's there's a simplicity towards there's a way of explaining things so simply like that just makes sense, that sometimes we overcomplicate explanations, that when you go down to the simple biological programming we have. Yeah, Occam's razor, perfect example, is one of the things I tell people all the time, and I seem to get a good result from it, is I keep reminding, whether it's younger people or older people than me at 27, is saying that we're just a bunch of animals, and if you treat us like animals, we respond better, you know?
Right.
Like,
wait, let's look over in the chat really quick. Jay says you could be related. You're South American. I think that's a reference to when you said.
For some reason, I can't.
You said you were Adolf Hitler.
Oh, I can still have the Hitler mustache. That's some
the
bullshit.
Boys of Brazil reference, I suppose. I'm assuming your South American side invaded your Polish side, and then he says. Korn has figured out a way to how to use us to take over the world. So I guess we were talking about who's the most intelligent life form. He's saying Korn.
Yeah, Korn. Well, yeah, I've actually I think there's a bit of a meme I think he's referring to. There's a few like internet subcultures that have like, if you look at all biological life as like putting in their hat for the best species on the planet, you could make the argument that Korn is one of them. Simply out of their you know, they're all over the world. They're very hardy, and we domesticated them to the point where they're pretty much the American economy would go to shit if all the corn just disappeared.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go in there and check out the chat real quick.
Yeah, man. Actually,
So
I could have gone
kind of
into
lost my train of thought.
yeah.
But just not to. But my point was that
We're talking neural networks and biology, wet work.
I just wanted to go
exactly.
in there and check out the chat.
It's not
real
just
quick.
a lot of
Yeah,
times.
man,
It's not
actually-
really just about raw power or like, let's say amount of gray matter. A lot of times it's how it has to be used. So to give the example, my point was that if you take a look at like computers built for gaming enthusiasts versus computers that are built in spec for like, let's say, production environment, like 3D production environment, very different.
Completely.
So one PC, like the more cores you have, the better the performance scales with that core count. But if you were to take that type of a platform, that type of an architecture, and use it to run a game, like a high-end game, more core count, it doesn't really work very well. It would much rather have like a single core and a higher clock count, higher base clock, than all these different cores. Games right now are not engineered for that. So if you have like, I believe that there is design in nature. However, however you understand that. For me, whether or not a designer is involved is irrelevant at this point, because I don't know nothing about them. So I'm just going to say if design exists in the world, then that's either a fact on its own. It does not necessarily have to imply designer at this point. But I believe that there's design in the world, and looking at the design of things like you mentioned an elephant, it seems to have a lot more gray matter. Well, there's also a variant of this, right? In cell biology, something called the C-value paradox, where you have something like an onion that has hundreds of chromosomes in it. So you would think, whoa, if it has hundreds of chromosomes, it must be a very complex organism. But it's an onion.
Right.
Whereas humans have vastly less chromosomes. We're like
but the way they're expressed.
Complex creatures.
Exactly. But the way the chromosomes are expressed. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how I understand it. So having a certain amount of gray matter, like let's say an elephant has more gray matter than a human, doesn't seem to matter, because like the same thing with chromosomes. You can have way more chromosomes in like a broccoli or an onion, and have much less chromosomes in a human being. It all is what really matters is how the organism is basically put together and how it how it utilizes
how it ends up manifesting that genetic template into an organism that can practically create more of itself to whatever, you know.
Right.
Or how it works against other organisms.
Right.
Because you're talking about the elephant versus a human. I mean, like we use elephant tusks to make pianos.
Well, the reason that's a good point. The reason I brought up elephants in particular is I think I've mentioned this to you, Chris. I don't know, Jether, but apparently there was some psychologists that had charted out the way elephants think, and apparently the same region in our brain where we see like a dog or a cute animal, they store their information on humans in the same realm. So
I've heard this. Yeah.
And that was
so like they see it. Oh, cute little human.
Oh, cute little human. That to me that almost like I would say on an emotional level that implies they actually being the more intellectual of us both. Like obviously they that we know of, they can't do differential equations or thermodynamics, whatever, higher level physics, stuff like that. But it's like their brains, like Jether is saying, is that they would be capable of it. Is that fair to say?
Their brains would be capable of higher level
thought. Like the thing is the hardware is there, but they don't have the wetware. Like they don't have the wetware to get there. But the thing is, their hardware is capable. That's the point I'm making the jump from genetic potential to essentially, like you were saying earlier, gray matter potential.
Well, that sounds like maybe potential to evolve.
Right. Well, that's the direction I'm taking it. Exactly. Yeah. Is that like they could evolve, and I would say, because this is actually my subtle segue back into Disgust, is what if, because humans see us as cute, but what if, this is my theory I was building up to, is what if we could convince elephants to think we are disgusting and repulsive? What would they start forming civilizations to avoid us? And then in turn, would they start shaping their land to avoid humans? Like picture if every elephant on the earth started terraforming to avoid humans right now.
I mean, likely, but that's what I'm saying. Like evolution,
Planet of the Apes style,
it comes through necessity, right? Like
completely.
We evolved because of whatever was necessary at the time for us because of fire, because of whatever, right?
Right. Predators in
so
particular.
Like, yeah, I mean, if we could change the way that elephants view humans, yes, potentially. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on elephants, but I would imagine that would change the way that their societies worked in some way.
Well, I mean,
like elephant societies, if you could call it that.
You know what the global leader in killing humans is on a yearly basis, and I don't think they've been touched in a long time.
Mosquitoes? What is it?
Not
some
mosquitoes.
shit like that, right?
No, you're thinking small. It's big.
Oh, on the big. Oh,
Any guesses, Chris?
Rhinos.
You're close as far
as
hippos. Apparently,
they're extremely they kill more humans.
Yeah. They kill more than like tigers and like a bunch of shit
by combined. Like a landslide. It's like 3 times more because they're very territorial in rivers, and when they're in a river, they are like, they're like a rhino in water. Like when they come after you, they just trample you, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, well, they just like eat you basically.
Well, they don't even eat.
Like, from what I understand, hippos are really violent.
They're very violent, but they're not carnivores.
Yeah,
it's all territory for them.
Okay, and they kill more humans than like even like crocs and alligators.
Crocs, yeah. Well, even when you go cold-blooded animals only kill to survive or to sustain. So they don't. They're not very aggressive. It's warm-blooded animals that are the more aggressive ones.
Right. It's pretty wild shit.
Mosquitoes win though. I'd say mosquitoes win. Mosquitoes don't kill. Mosquitoes are parasites. It's the diseases they carry.
Diseases they kill. Yeah. So technically, mosquitoes don't kill themselves. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they don't kill. Mosquitoes don't want to kill anyone. They want to keep us. They're like vampires. They want to keep us healthy.
They need blood in order to like lay their eggs. So like all the mosquitoes that actually bite you are all female mosquitoes.
Right.
Male mosquitoes don't bite.
They do not. They don't have a purpose of it.
Yeah.
Actually, that's interesting. I've never really wondered this. Do they have the hardware to do it? Could they?
Males?
Yeah. Do they have
male
the same
mosquitoes?
proboscis and everything?
They have a proboscis, yeah, but they don't use it for that.
Oh, but like if let's say if there's like a Neo to like all mosquitoes and he's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I want to start. Could he? Suck blood?
I mean, do they have a sack for it though?
That's what I'm wondering.
Sack? I don't know. I know they have a proboscis, but
Jether,
I don't know if they have a blood sack.
Any insight here? Do you know if a male mosquito wanted to suck blood, could he?
Well, here's the thing. There's been this question about how do mosquitoes get enough protein to survive, or at least the male mosquitoes do so.
Right.
How do they? Yeah. So. I really have no idea.
That was so anticlimactic. And then you found $20, right?
Yeah. They suck the nectar out of out of plants and whatnot.
Yeah, that's actually that's what they have it, but whether or not they have the needle inside of it too, that's a different question. They don't have the blood bag, I don't think either.
Right.
No, okay. So, but then think about it this way, because like mostly like a fluid thing, like blood is a much thicker thing to basically draw up than
sugar water.
Than sugar water is.
Yeah.
So they probably don't. They have the sucking mechanism because that's how they eat. But they couldn't.
But there's 2 pieces of it. There's the sucking part, and then there's the needle that bores.
Right.
Jay's saying if they don't bite, it's probably because they can't. I don't think so. I think they'd have no need to because the females need blood to lay eggs. That's why they bite.
Right. And actually, for most two-gendered species, they'll always retain their vestigial potential on most parts.
Right.
Like male nipples. Like there's always been the arguments like why do males have nipples if they?
Yeah, exactly. Like why do we exactly? Yeah, that's the same.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So it's like basically just a carryover or something that's been vestigial.
Exactly. But and actually, I'm not a fan of trans people. I'm not trying to make this a trans stream, but apparently there have been transgender people who have been able. The transgender men. They're transgender women. I think is the proper way to describe it. But where they were able to lactate for their adopted children. Given the proper estrogen, their mammary glands started to actually produce milk and everything. Well,
because men can grow breasts if they're given like certain estrogen. Like even if like if you like eat like even like certain types of estrogen, like and I think a lot of it is present in like soy and stuff.
Yeah.
So if a guy like eats too much soy, he can start growing breasts.
Exactly.
That actually happens for real.
That actually happens. I've never seen it happen, but it's been reported.
It's pretty fucked up.
Completely or
Soylent. The guy that made Soylent, he got man
yeah.
boobs himself.
Did he?
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
not surprised.
Yeah, right.
I'm not surprised
but,
at all.
So that's not necessarily surprising. It's just a little
So
strange.
I think the takeaway is that we need to have a disgust reflex as men towards soy. Is that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely don't
fair-
even.
It's all that
I don't
shit
fuck
is all over Twitter.
Yeah. I don't fuck with
Peak
it at all.
soy, stay away from. Yeah, it's basically like a social condemnation right now of a man to say he's soy or eats soy.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, what?
Yeah.
basically a fem-
One
Good,
thing,
it
that,
should be.
one thing that blows me away is that there's so like obviously the three of us we're all connected via Twitter, so obviously we're all connected to Twitter. But there's an overwhelming majority of the population that still is not hashtag aware. So it's funny when you bring up soy, or I hear soy brought up in public, and I instantly want to make a soy joke, and I just look at it, I read the room, and I'm like, oh wow. Only
Well,
one
I mean,
guy.
I mean, like you're talking to some, like I said, I've said this like a couple times. I just moved out of San Francisco, man. I
Yeah.
just moved out of the Bay.
Yeah.
It's all over the place, man. That's like, I mean, that's it's
Well,
so essential.
I would actually argue. I mean, Jether, you're in New York City too. You guys are more in the
you're
belly.
in New York? Oh shit.
Yeah, you guys are more in the belly of the
Damn.
beast than I am.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
got you. I got you, pedo. We're already back on the shore, man.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, New York is pretty far gone. I mean, like any major city is going to be like that because there's like, I mean, you're going to have a lot of people that are attracted to it that are like very, very like,
Well,
I mean,
it's that progressive accelerationism.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
that-
exactly. Exactly.
It's something I wanted to talk about a few times. Actually, we haven't gotten into this before yet, Chris. But it's like the idea that being a progressive is you always need to be a radical, but because you're competing with other radicals, you're like compounding. It now becomes like an exponential thing.
Yeah, become more radical because you have to
That,
prove how radical you are.
And even if you look at like conservative groups, there's always a radical in the bunch. Like if you have like the most conservative, like actually a perfect example is if we're tying this into current events, CPAC right now. You know. The conservatives are trying to compete in the Trump Olympics right now, the Trumponomics of marketing, and
I know, it's so stupid.
It's hilarious to watch because a lot of them are so bad at it, and the ones that are good at it are banned. You know?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that the thing about that stuff, it's like with the conservatives versus the liberals and stuff, is that the conservatives are really just like. What's the quote? It's like conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit, basically.
Yeah, I've heard that.
No?
Yeah, I've heard that.
And it's like,
I like that.
mean, they're just kind of following, really. They're letting the progressives kind of set the tone, which is, I think we talked about this last stream. It's like they should just stop doing that.
Right. They need to go back to their guns because they're not.
Yeah.
No, the issue we're having is like a more moderate base because I think both ideologies are pushing everyone more moderate, and we're all collectively moderates shrugging our shoulders, going, this is it. It's like
that's exactly what turned me into like more of a moderate person. Is like I'm like, I grew up very, very in like a very progressive area. Then I went to San Francisco and shit, and it's like I saw all of the problems with that, and I was like, this is fucking crazy. And I was like, maybe you guys have some shit going on over here. And then I'm like, y'all are fucking crazy too. It's like exactly right. Both ideologies are pushing people more closer to the center. So all I can do is hope that all of them just keep going. Just keep doing what you're doing.
I think the most important thing for everyone is just to have civil discourse, show that regardless of what you identify as or with or whatever, that you can have a conversation. I think not enough people do that. That's my pulpit. I'll step off
because of the disgust mechanism, man. They're disgusted by each other.
Right. I try not to be disgusted by anything.
Did you hear that Pete Butt? He dropped out of the race. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Buttigieg? He dropped out?
He did?
Yeah, he dropped out.
How recently?
Yeah, I was kind of distracted when you guys were talking about mosquitoes and shit. I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw that.
Well, Tom Steyer just dropped out too yesterday. Newsflash: Tom Steyer was also running for president, just so everybody knows.
Oh, okay.
after the video surfaced of him hanging out at the Juvenile concert, he decided to drop out, which is crazy.
This might be fake.
He's gotten.
This might be fake. I don't see any on Twitter. I'm searching Pete Buttigieg. I don't see anything. It's all just people. There's no blue checks, which I'm not a fan of blue checks, but until it gets to the blue checks.
Cernovich tweeted it. You should look up Cernovich.
Okay.
Forum campaign staff that he's dropping out of. This is Associated Press.
Yeah, this is also
campaign staff that he's dropping out of the White House race. Okay. 3 people with the knowledge of the decision tell AP. His campaign says Buttigieg will speak Sunday night in South Bend.
Dang. Okay. Well, that's legit then. I mean, That's the thing.
Good.
That's the thing,
That
man.
is good.
It's all reputation. I think Cernovich is one of the few people that prides himself on his reputation out there still, you know.
Yeah.
There's so many clickbaity journalists out there where you're like, I'm conditioned to assume that it's fake. That's
Yeah. No, I mean, I generally, I mean, AP is usually pretty good. I mean,
AP. Well, that's AP. That's what they're meant to do. They're meant to be the gold standard, you know.
Yeah.
That'd be like Fort Knox coming out saying, "Oh, we never had any gold in the first place," you know. But so I mean, we're about 90 minutes in, guys. Where your head is at? You want to go for a little longer? We want to be calling it here soon, or?
I'm gonna probably say let's call it pretty soon because I'm gonna have to do some other shit. I gotta work on some videos and stuff. But I think we covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we did. We did. I mean,
same.
Jether, any passing thoughts or any ending thoughts? We're glad to have you. By the way, I don't think we ever made a spectacle of.
Again,
I was gonna say I don't think we made a spectacle of the fact that this is your first time on the show. So
yeah, no, I'm glad. I thought I would be in a worse condition right now, but thankfully I'm better health-wise. So
health-wise, yeah. I'm glad to hear.
Yeah.
You sound to be in a good.
You feeling all right?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right. So I wouldn't mind being back on the show again.
Yeah, definitely come back. This was great.
Yeah.
What kind of topics do you guys typically discuss?
Dude, you saw. Go for it.
Check out my. So sometimes we'll do this thing too, where I'll pick because I do I'll do some YouTube videos. Like I try to do videos 3 times a week on like stuff that's trending. So sometimes we'll pick stuff that I talked about during YouTube. Sometimes Michael have some topics. Yeah. I mean, it'll be like political, social, whatever, man.
Yeah, I think the way I like to think of myself, and I think Chris brands himself in a similar way, is that we're like Renaissance men. That whatever's kind of on my docket for the day is what's going to be on the chopping block. Whether it's as old as classical philosophy, something you could bring up any day of the week, towards the current events that are only relevant now. And the thing is, I think it's fun to tie both of those in together. Like you always have the stuff you're thinking about on the back burner and tying that into exactly what you got on the front burner. So and we try not to meander too much. Try to keep it on track. So anything you need to plug? Chris has made his plugs. Anything you want to plug before we sign off here, Jether? Any ways to actually in the stream? I just want to shout it out once. We got @RealMrBehavior for Chris in the blue, and @Jether Blaise both on Twitter in the red shirt. If you want to follow them and their wonderful ideas.
Yes, exactly. Primary colors. You see me wearing this orange thing. The only reason I'm wearing this is because it's a last-ditch effort. I couldn't get my system over here working in time, so I had to use the secondary color. Disgusting. And you can see I got the green PC right over there. But that's because green is I don't mind.
Well, I was gonna say, did you want to? You said you had an aesthetics company. Did you want to plug what you're working on, or is it too soon to reveal?
No, sure.
Your project, your pet project.
Yeah, my pet project, Aesthetic Arts. Originally, it started out me just doing science, engineering, and technology, news and updates. But then I decided I'd like to expand it more into like also arts and entertainment. Cool. So on the art side, it like covers like let's say like photography, nice graphics and things like that, where science, engineering, technology will be the subject matter, and then
like a driving force behind the art.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have a couple tweets out up there on the Aesthetic Arts page. So you can see that how, like, for example, one of my favorite pictures is of a very high speed photography done of a liquid paints placed on type of a diaphragm where it's excited by a very low frequency pulse, and then you capture it in very fast shutter speed. You see how it operates on low time scales, but it's beautiful. So it creates this beautiful pattern.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah, that's the type of stuff that I like.
So that's the kind of stuff we can be expecting more in the future here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the website up and running. I got a little sideline with these health issues. Hopefully within a month or so, I could get more tweets on there and the website up.
Cool, well, man. Loving it. Love having you on.
My Twitter bio, anyway, if you want to check it out.
All right. Yeah, just send me over those. I'll make sure I put in the description. But this has been the Disgust.